I'm sitting at my desk right now. I'm staring at a computer screen with a Google Doc up that says, Learning to Fly, a DCS series. Then I write, the series goal is to share what it takes to learn to play DCS World from start to finish in a way that is informative and entertaining to new players, and fun and exciting for veterans. I'm Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive PC games in the world, and this is DCS World. Flash out. A few months ago, you might remember that I posted a video where I took the Su-25T Frogfoot, a Russian strike aircraft, out for a spin in the famous online flight simulator, DCS World. I explained what DCS was in that video, but I think it's important to recap it here, particularly as we begin this incredible undertaking with such a broad and deep subject. DCS World, Digital Combat Simulator World, is a free, quote-unquote, flight simulator developed by Eagle Dynamics and available for download on Steam or from their website as a standalone application. Now, after I posted that video of the Su-25T flight, I was so impressed that the game was free to play, and then immediately in the comments and over on Reddit and elsewhere where I shared my experience, people were like, yeah, it's free to play, but ... It is an investment over time, and that's turned out to be true. So I had such a positive experience flying the Su-25, learning that aircraft, and just becoming so immersed in the digital world that I decided to invest more heavily. And I purchased some hardware as well as some modules that have led me on this journey to exploring the game more fully. And the scope and the depth of this series that I'm throwing together is designed, like I said previously, to entertain and educate new players, as well as hopefully entertain some veterans and just generate some general discussion over what it takes to get started in this simulation. Before we go any further, I feel that it's necessary to preface this discussion with the obvious fact that I am not a veteran or an expert in this game. But I am a new player who's managed to overcome some of the hurdles that frequently prevent people from enjoying the experience in DCS World, and I thought that it was important to share that experience with the broader community to drive some of this discussion about how we can get more people into the game and how we can help new players have a positive experience. First, why would anyone want to play DCS World? Well, funny enough, I was actually browsing YouTube looking for some immersive, fun, new simulation games, and I had a fond experience with flight simulators in my past. I used to play Fly Aces High 2. It's an old Warbird, massively multiplayer online game that I think is still active, but I had some great experiences in that game previously, and I was interested in pursuing a new flight simulator. I had in the past also played some Lock-On Modern Air Combat, though I never fully understood or mastered the game. I kind of installed it, played it a little bit, failed at it, and eventually quit, probably because I was just too young to fully appreciate that experience. With that in mind, I saw a video pop up from a YouTuber who I later learned was Spudknocker, a pretty infamous content creator in the DCS content creation community. And Spudknocker did a video that, I'll begrudgingly say, was a ripoff of a video done by Operator Drewski some time ago. Operator Drewski originally explained why he loved tactical shooters so much. I'd seen that video and I loved it. Spudknocker used a similar script to explain exactly why he was so passionate about DCS World as a flight simulation. It was a compelling argument, and I immediately bought in, and I started to research. So that's what got me on the journey to look into DCS World more seriously. So after doing some more research, watching some more YouTube videos, and ultimately deciding to take the plunge into DCS World, I flew the Su-25T mission and then decided I was going all in. The next step, obviously, was to choose an aircraft. So, like I said, the game is free, but these premium modules can run anywhere from $7 for the low-fidelity, simple-to-fly modules that you can get with a bundle called the Flaming Cliffs 3 bundle, which I highly recommend for new players or folks who are just dipping their feet into the flight simulation environment for the first time, all the way up to $80 and $90 modules like the premium F-14 Tomcat by Heat Blur Simulations. So rather than pay for the whole game, you buy modules on a piecemeal basis. And yeah, there's periodically sales, and I was fortunate enough to take advantage of one, but I had to go shopping and decide exactly what I wanted. So what was I looking for in an aircraft? Well, I wanted something that was more nimble than the Su-25T that flew around like a brick and seemed to fall out of the sky at all the times. And I wanted something that could perform in a multi-role capacity. I didn't want to have to spend tons of money to get a bunch of different experiences. In other words, I didn't want to buy an aircraft for ground attack, and then a few weeks later purchase an aircraft for an air superiority mission, and then a few weeks later decide that I wanted something that could do carrier operations, for example. Out of the box, I wanted something that would allow me to learn the game and learn all these different roles and ultimately master those different roles without having to purchase a bunch of different modules. With that in mind, the obvious choice seemed to be the FA-18C Hornet fighter aircraft. And so that's what I purchased. I bought the Hornet, and in addition to the Hornet, I also purchased the Persian Gulf map. The main driving reason for me to purchase the Persian Gulf map was because the multiplayer experience is very varied. One of the more infamous opportunities that you have in the multiplayer servers is hosted by a community of pilots called Hoggit. And Hoggit is a noob-friendly community that has a great subreddit that I highly recommend, as well as a very large Discord population that invites new players to come and ask questions that are very quickly answered. And Hoggit also hosts 3 of the most important servers in the DCS World multiplayer community. The first of which is a training server where you can spawn in enemy aircraft and ground targets and then go practice attacking them, as well as conducting air refuel and carrier operations and what have you. The second is Georgia at War, which takes place on the Caucasus map, which is the one free map that is included with the free-to-play version of DCS World. But the reason that I purchased the Persian Gulf map is because Hoggit also hosts a Persian Gulf at War server in DCS World multiplayer. And these servers host up to 40 players at the same time in a PvE environment that is generally dynamic, where you can spawn in an aircraft, take off, fly with your friends, and then go and fight in a digital battle that is changing over time. And because I was passionate about having the opportunity to play in that sort of dynamic environment, it seemed obvious that I would need to purchase the Persian Gulf map. The bonus is the Persian Gulf map is also the most beautiful of the maps offered by Eagle Dynamics, in my opinion. And of course, it's located in one of the most tenuous geopolitical regions in the entire globe, making for realistic mission opportunities at every moment. So having purchased the F-18 and the Persian Gulf map, next I needed the tools to be able to drive that machine in the game. When you watched my SU-25T video a couple months ago, I only had a flight stick at the time, so I was missing some key pieces of equipment. One of them was a throttle, and a throttle is critical in DCS World. It is a full simulation of a game, and so that throttle and being able to manage that throttle is incredibly important because it adds a bunch of key bindings that we'll go into more detail later that are absolutely critical for you being successful. And it's also important to have that throttle so that you can manage your speed whenever you're flying in formation, whenever you're conducting air-to-air refuel, and whenever you're conducting carrier operations, which of course the F-18 is fully capable of doing. In addition to the throttle, I also purchased a head tracking solution that allows me to use infrared lights on a device that is affixed to my headphones and tracked by an IR readable camera on my monitor, so that when I turn my head left, right, up, down, and then translate it around, those lights are tracked in time and space, and then the inputs of the tilt in my head are turned into an axis of control and allow me to look around the cockpit in the game. This is absolutely critical for DCS World. It's possible to have a good time without it, but you can't fully enjoy the immersion of the experience or maintain situational awareness, particularly in ground attack or in dogfighting, without a head tracking solution of some sort. A future video will contain an unboxing of each piece of equipment, as well as my initial impressions and a review after I put some hours into the game with each piece of hardware. What I'll say right now is I purchased the T16000M flight stick from Thrustmaster, as well as the Thrustmaster TWCS, or Thrustmaster Weapon Control System, as my throttle. I also purchased the Delin Clip Fusion head tracking solution, which is the only wireless option that I found. I can recommend confidently each one of these pieces of equipment, although I do have some critiques that I will offer whenever I release that first impressions video, as well as the review for each one of those pieces of hardware. But if you're interested in pulling the trigger on any of those things right now, I am 100% confident in recommending it as an entry-level set of flight sim equipment, and there's links to each of those products available in the description if you're ready to do that now. So after I ordered the gear, of course it's in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, and so mail is running relatively slowly. So I had plenty of time to do some studying while I waited for everything to arrive. So how do you go about studying a simulation where the aircraft itself is a near one-to-one replica in appearance and complexity in systems as a real fighter aircraft? Well, here's what I did, and I think there's a bunch of options here, but this worked for me. And I will say that I was pretty passionate about it, and so I invested the appropriate time learning the airplane and reading about it and watching YouTube videos and studying before I ever even sat in the cockpit for the first time. So the first resource that I'll recommend to you is Chuck's Guide. Chuck is a community member who, when each module releases, at least so far, invests God knows how many hours developing an in-detail PDF document that covers everything from the specifications of the aircraft to how to navigate each one of the systems within that aircraft. And I can say confidently that every checklist that I could have possibly needed, every image, every reference to a silly button inside the cockpit where I needed to find something and click it to move on to the next step, all the answers to all those questions were in Chuck's Guide. And by the time I finally sat down in the cockpit and I was ready for my first flight, I felt comfortable because I had seen those images and read those lists and studied Chuck's Guide in such depth that I had felt like I had been there before. So Chuck's Guide is my number one recommendation. If you are not a reader and you need videos or audio or what have you to be successful, I will give you 3 options, and then I will explain some pros and cons with each of them. The first one that I have to highly recommend is the Matt Wagner YouTube channel. Matt Wagner works for Eagle Dynamics and runs a YouTube channel that does a tutorial on virtually every update that is released. Specifically for the F-18, he has an entire playlist that covers a lot of the basics from top to bottom that you could need to get started in the F-18. Most of his videos are pretty short and they're easy to follow and they are very descriptive, and you can easily pause them and play them back and learn some process or some procedure over and over again. So Chuck's Guide plus Matt Wagner tutorials will put you in a really good spot. The next recommendation I've got for you is the YouTube channel of Jabbers. Jabbers is a community member who has done some really good tutorials. I specifically recommend all of his carrier operations tutorials. He taught me how to land on the aircraft carrier. And of course, when you get the F-18, that's one of the first things that you want to learn. Although you should not learn it first. I'll say that. We'll get to it more later. Next, I'd like to recommend the Red Kite YouTube channel. Red Kite is different from the previous 2 recommendations in that he picks one topic and he'll go very deep into that topic. So where you get a lot of breadth and you get some succinct information from my previous 2 recommendations, Red Kite will go very in-depth on, say, specifically the lightning targeting pod on the F-18. And in fact, I do think it was Red Kite that taught me how to use the T-pod, as well as the radar system and some of the other more intricate systems within the F-18 cockpit that you're going to get to as you explore the simulation more thoroughly. And then the final recommendation that I'll make, although I will do it with a grain of salt, is all of the tutorials offered by the Grim Reapers. Grim Reapers are a community within DCS World that is headed by Cap, or Super Cap, as he is known, and he is an infamous personality in the DCS World community. He's also a polarizing personality. I don't know the man, although he is a productive and passionate community member, so I will not say anything negative about him. However, what I will say is that I have found the tutorials offered on the Grim Reaper YouTube channel are wavetop only. They rapidly get to the point and answer the question that you're quickly typing into that YouTube search bar, but sometimes you may get bad information with the good. Sometimes it won't go into enough depth. There is some risk of learning some bad habits depending on what you're looking at. But if you need a quick answer and you just need to accomplish something very quickly, I think that the Grim Reaper tutorial videos are a great place to start. Finally, and I'm reiterating this one, I already mentioned Hoggit as a community for new players. I highly recommend that you subscribe to the Hoggit subreddit as well as join the Hoggit Discord. It's a great place to get simple questions answered, find people to fly with, and overall will contribute to having an excellent experience in DCS World. All right, that was 14 minutes and 45 seconds of me talking about getting started playing DCS World. And in that 14 minutes and 45 seconds, I described actions that take hours and hours and hours. So why would you want to play DCS World? At this point, if you've listened for this long, you're clearly a psychopath, but you've also clearly come to the right place. And I'm really excited to be able to share this experience with you guys as I have gone through the process of learning how to fly the F-18 and learning to enjoy DCS World. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. Thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Learning to Fly, this DCS World series. I'm Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive PC games in the world, and I'll see you in the next one.